Okay, we're going to talk a little bit right now about the election of Abraham Lincoln and how that led up to the Civil War. So, again, we're still dealing a little bit with the causes of the Civil War here. Before we get right into the election of Lincoln, I want to talk just a little bit about an incident that took place at a place called Harpers Ferry. Here we have John Brown, who you might recall from Bleeding Kansas, coming back into the story of the Civil War and really the lead up to it. Just prior to the election, about a year prior to the election of Abraham Lincoln, a slave rebellion, or at least what John Brown hopes will become a slave rebellion, occurs at a place called Harpers Ferry. It's in Virginia, and he gets a few other people involved, about 17 people overall, and they're going to go ahead and try to incite a general slave uprising across the South. The effort is unsuccessful. Half of the men involved end up being killed, including John Brown himself, who is put on trial for the whole incident and hung. And again, just another event that leads us closer towards what will eventually be the Civil War. But the thing that really kind of sparked it all was the election of Lincoln himself in 1860. Lincoln is elected president in 1860 in what is really one of the more wide open races, presidential races in our nation's history. It was actually a four-way race. There were four major candidates who were running. Lincoln runs as the anti-extension of slavery candidate. So he's not exactly, he won't call himself an anti-slavery candidate, but again, definitely believes in limiting slavery. Douglas runs under the banner of popular sovereignty, that states should be allowed to decide for themselves. And then another candidate, a guy by the name of Breckinridge, comes in, and he is in favor of extending slavery. So he's kind of the South's favorite. And then a fourth candidate by the name of Bell, who runs on a party that's the Constitution Party, that has no position on slavery whatsoever. It's really an effort to revive the old Whig Party. It was kind of like their last hurrah. And it's probably the most minor of all the different candidates. Lincoln wins the election with only 40% of the popular vote. So again, he was not a overwhelming pick of the American people. This vote was split lots of different ways, several different ways, and there's a lot of speculation. If the race had just been between Lincoln and Douglas, would Lincoln have won? Would Douglas have been the president of the United States? But with the Southern vote split and the Democratic vote split between basically three different candidates, it allows Lincoln to go ahead and assume the presidency. South Carolina doesn't wait long. They again view Lincoln as somebody who is going to end slavery. They will go 6 weeks after the election of Lincoln. They will go ahead and secede from the Union. This is in the time period between when a Lincoln is elected and when he takes the oath of office. So at this point, he's really just the president-elect. He's not the president yet. And during this time, between when Lincoln assumes the presidency and when he's elected, the Confederacy forms. It forms in 1861. They elect their own president, a man by the name of Jefferson Davis, and they outline just a few key differences they have with the United States. In many regards, it's the same rules, it's the same government, it's the same type of setup as there was in the United States, except that in the Confederacy, the states are explicitly described as sovereign and independent. So again, less power to the federal government, to the Confederacy, more power to the states. And also, in their constitution, there is the right to own slaves that is guaranteed. So those are the two significant differences, really, between the Union and the Confederacy as far as the form of government goes. The reaction in the North is mixed, but mostly it's almost a stunned reaction. Again, half the people in Washington that were working there were Southerners, and so there are mass resignations in Washington. Half the government one day walks out the door because of that, because there's a lot of posts not filled, because there's huge vacancies in the government. There's a lot of confusion. People don't know what's going on. People are having trouble processing everything that's happened. And so there are a lot of folks in the North, before Lincoln assumes the office, that really are just accepting it, that, well, this is the end of the United States. The country's breaking up, and the South will go their merry way and the North will go its way, and that'll be that. And so there's a level of acceptance, except on the part of Abraham Lincoln. This was not something he was prepared to accept. And so he goes in, and when he becomes president, he makes it his mission to go ahead and hold the country together. He views the secession as illegal, as unconstitutional, and he is not going to allow it to stand. And he becomes the one who holds the Union together.